Hi there, welcome. Hi, everybody coming on in. We are going to get started a little afternoon. Just going to give some time for everyone to shuffle on in. We are excited to have you here with us today. Welcome, everyone. We are just going to give it a couple more minutes, just allowing everyone to file on in before we get started. We're just going to give it one more minute here. Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and get started. As people file in, we were just going to go power right along. My name is Tyler Reyes, and I am a career coach here with the Fresno State Career Development Center. I'm here today to talk with you all about resume writing, the basics, just getting started, how to get our first resume up off the ground. With me are other members of the Career Development Center's team. They will be answering questions and monitoring the chat. If you have any questions, just throw them in the chat and we will address them as we go along. So, what is a resume? Very basically, it's a list of qualifications and experience. It's a list of everything and anything that you've ever done related to your own career journey. Different ways that you can think about it are it's an advertisement for you. It's putting yourself down on paper and making yourself marketable to jobs and employers in any of the industries that you are interested in. It is an elevator pitch written down. For those of you who have never heard of this term, elevator pitch is a 30-second pitch. If you were stuck in an elevator with someone and they asked you to tell them about yourself, you have 30 seconds to summarize yourself as a professional. That's what a resume can be conceived as. And most importantly, it is your first impression to a potential employer. So we want to make sure that we make it right. Why do you need a resume? There are a variety of reasons why resumes are important, applying to jobs, scholarships, schools, and more. As you advance in education, you might find that some schools will require you to have a resume. Some scholarships will require you to submit one. Jobs, certainly, they almost always require you to submit a resume. It is a marketing tool for networking. So, for example, we have the career fairs that are coming up in the first week of October. We will be in person at this moment in time. It's still scheduled to be in person. Students will typically bring copies of their resumes to hand out to employers. So in that way, they are great marketing tools. It's a record of your experience and accomplishments, and you'll find as you progress through life, as you get older and have more and more jobs under your belt, it's going to get hard to remember them all. So having them written down and listed out somewhere is going to benefit you when it comes to applying jobs to jobs later on in life. And then lastly, it's a demonstration of professionalism, communication skills, and attention to detail. At the end of the day, the resume is the first example an employer will see of the quality of content that you can produce. Any grammatical errors, any funky formatting, anything like that, it's going to stick out to them. So that's why we want to make sure that your resume looks as professional and polished as possible. Why is all this important? Employers can typically spend anywhere from 7 to 60 seconds looking at a single resume, no more than that. When you're looking at industries where there are a large number of applicants for very few openings, sometimes it's not even a physical person reviewing resumes, but resume reading software. These people, these resume readers and resume software are looking for key words and phrases that stick out in your resume. If they don't have them there, your resume is going to get tossed. Some of the top reasons employers will stop looking at a resume within this time frame: it's hard to read. The layout is all over the place. They can't find the information they're looking for, or they notice really significant grammatical errors. If they notice that the experiences that you're listing are irrelevant to the position that you are applying for. If you are trying to be a manager at a retail store and all of your experience is in, food service, they're going to wonder, okay, well, what kind of experience do they have being a manager? They're going to toss that resume. Or alternatively, if they see a resume that they really like and it's hitting all of the notes, they can just stop right there and put you in the pile to move forward in the interview process. And that's the ultimate purpose of the resume, is to get you into the interview room, not the circular filing cabinet. And for those of you who've never heard of that, there's an example right there of what the circular filing cabinet means. We're going to do a little exercise to kind of illustrate this point. So we are going to review 2 resumes. I'm going to give you 15 seconds each, and then we're going to ask a poll for you to tell us which one you think is better or worse. So for the next 15 seconds, we're going to look at one resume. Okay, and now we're going to move on to resume example number 2. Again, 15 seconds to review this resume. Alrighty, so we're going to throw a poll up there for you. Please vote for which resume you think is the stronger resume. You should be able to see a poll popping up on your screen. If you look in the chat, potentially it might be there. Gonna give it a few more seconds. And then Damien, are you able to share the poll results with us? Alrighty, so the majority of the respondents said that resume 1 was the stronger one, and that makes me happy. That's what we want to see. So moving forward, we're gonna kind of get your opinions. What do you think should go on a resume? So with your phone, go ahead and scan this QR code, or follow the instructions, go to menti.com and use that access code on the screen and type in the fields provided what type of things you think should go on a resume. I'm going to leave this up for just a few more seconds, and then we're going to go over to the Mentimeter slide. And once you submit your responses, they will show up on the screen. Okay, so very clearly, experience is coming across. We can see that in experiences, education, work experience, past work experience, definitely all should be on a resume. And right next to experience is education. A lot of you are indicating education, which yes, we do want to see that as well. Name, contact information, and qualifications. These are all things that we want to see when we're looking at resumes. So thank you very much for participating in that. And so we are going to continue forward. So getting started on writing a resume is tough. Different people have different ways of doing it. My personal best recommendation, when in doubt, blurt it out. Just get everything out that you can think of and organize it in a way that makes sense to you. Bubble mapping, T-charts, a chronological list, whatever works best for you to visualize your information. Describe your role. What did I actually do in each of these positions? Write out every single job task you ever did, anything that sticks out in your mind, things that you did on a day-to-day basis in your jobs, anything like that. And then after you have everything all written out on the page, you're going to edit, organize, and review. There are a number of resources here at Fresno State that are available to help you get started. First and foremost, obviously the Career Development Center. We have career counselors like myself here to help students with getting their resume off the ground. And we have our Career Success Guide, and I have an image of that here. This is something, it's a web PDF, it's on our website, and we have template resumes, example resumes for multiple different industries, pretty much anything you can think of when it comes to starting writing the resume, it's going to be in this Career Success Guide. Other ways for you to help get started, do web searches for industry-specific resumes. You know, a resume for someone who wants to be a biological researcher is going to look a lot different than a resume for someone who wants to be a video game developer. Looking up industry-specific resume examples will give you a better sense of what you need to be writing to when it comes time to get into the career path that you want to go into. Lastly, the job posting. You are writing to the assignment. You're going to hear this a lot. We're going to talk about the job posting a lot throughout this conversation, but literally, as stated here, that is the assignment you are writing the resume to. As we mentioned earlier, when it comes to resume readers and resume screening software, they are looking for words and phrases that were used in the job description to see if they're in your resume. Copying any relevant skills that you have done from the job posting into the resume is a great way to make sure that yours is going to get picked to go on to the next round of interviews. No two resumes should be the same. Resume standards can depend on industry, the company, hiring committee, position, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's no one true best resume to beat them all. It's all going to depend on what your goals are. Most professionals don't have just one resume. They have a resume for every single position they ever apply to. You want to make sure you're tailoring your resumes to these positions and not sending out a general thing that might not necessarily apply to the positions that you're interested in. Again, the job posting is your most helpful tool when creating the resume. It's telling you what they're looking for, and it's up to you to make sure that your resume, your cover letter, all your application materials match up to that job posting. Anything that matches really closely is someone that they're going to be really interested in and put your name forth to go on to the interviewing process. So with all this information in mind, getting started on a basic resume, you're typically going to contain these items: contact information, experience, education, skills, certifications and abilities, and awards and honors. And these are all things that you brought up earlier, so thank you so much for that. I'm so super happy to hear that. Contact information. Elements to include are your name, your address, phone number and email address, and LinkedIn and licensure. If you have a professional license, these are optional. Your name should stand out. You want the interviewers to remember who you are. So you can see in the examples provided, we have the contact information, the address, the email address, phone number, and all that fun stuff is a little bit smaller, but Victor E's name stands out big and bold. And for resumes longer than 1 page, your name should appear on every single page of the resume. So something we want to talk about when we're talking about your contact information on a resume is professionalism and privacy. If you're going to include a LinkedIn profile, make sure it is professional. If you are going into web development and you want to give an example of your web portfolio, make sure that it looks nice and professional. It's all cleaned up. The content is, without errors. And then when we talk about privacy, you'll notice here that for the address, we just listed the city and the state. If a resume is something that you're going to post online, like for LinkedIn, you want to make sure that you're not posting too much personal information that anybody could access once it's online. It's there forever. That's why we recommend city and state just for something that you're going to post online. That way, random internet people don't know what your street address is, because we don't want that. Next step that we want to talk about is your experience. Experience can be paid, unpaid, volunteer leadership, research experience, really anything that you can think of. And there's a lot of different ways that you can break it down on a resume. You can list it by relevant experience. You can list it by work experience, leadership experience. You can even get as specific as the industry that you are working in experience. The example we give here is accounting experience. If you are a physical therapist and you have a lot of physical therapy experience, you can have a section just for physical therapy experience. You want to make sure that you're highlighting the relevant experiences to the job posting. Again, job posting is what we're applying to. For people who have had careers that span decades, they're going to have a lot of jobs under their belt that might not necessarily apply to the career that they are currently applying to. So making sure that you're highlighting those skills and those experiences that are directly relevant to the position you're applying for is what's really going to be important here. Things to include is the title or the position, what your title was when you worked there, the organization name, the city and state, and the dates of employment. You want to use bullet points to list your responsibilities, 3 to 4 bullet points per job, and no more than 2 lines max per bullet point. And you'll see what I mean in the next slide here. And so each bullet point should talk about what you did. It should highlight the tasks, the responsibilities, the projects that you worked on in your experiences. You want to try to start each bullet point with a power verb. Again, you want to copy and paste phrases and words from the job posting. If they are looking for someone with inventory experience, you want to make sure that you highlight your inventory experience. If they're looking for someone who has organized events, you want to make sure that you are highlighting the fact that you have organized things. And you want to use numbers wherever possible. Numbers serve a couple of different purposes. One, they're a nice break from the eyes. You're not reading words anymore, you're reading numbers, which are easier to read and understand. Two, they actually provide a scope for the interviewers to know, oh, he's handled large caseloads before. He knows how to handle, the work that we'd be doing here. Or, oh, he works best in small groups. Like, that's perfect because we're looking for someone to lead our small groups. And you can see here we broke it up by work experience and volunteer experience. Education. We want to make sure that you're listing all schools that you've earned a degree from. It is okay to list institutions that you studied abroad at to show that you have that outside of the United States experience, you have that exposure to another culture, especially if that's relevant to the position that you are applying for. You want to include the city and state of the school. You want to make sure you're listing the degree type. If it's an AAT, your AS degree, your bachelor's, your master's, etc. And the major and minor, if applicable. If you had a minor, make sure you list it. And you want to include your expected graduation date or the actual date that you graduated. If you had a GPA that was above 3.0, include that, especially if you have any academic honors, cum laude, magna cum laude, summa cum laude, include that in your resume. This is important for people who are just starting out writing your first resume. If you are fresh out of high school, first year in college, it's fine to include your high school to help fill out the resume. After about your sophomore year in college, we typically recommend to drop high school off because you've been a college student for a whole year, year and a half now. You have that experience. We want to make sure you're focusing on that. And on the right-hand side here, just a couple of different ways that you can write out your college experience. You can see that these are all in different fonts. I did that very intentionally to show that there are different professional readable fonts, but when you're writing your actual resume, you want to make sure that you're using consistent fonts throughout. Skills, certifications, and abilities. We want to make sure that you're listing marketable skills that make you stand out from the crowd. Items listed should demonstrate how you would benefit the organization. For example, multilingual skills. That's the biggest thing that pops up for us when we have students who are bilingual. We want to make sure that they highlight that they are fluent in the written and verbal components of the language. Especially here in Fresno, that can be really important when working with diverse populations. And it can also be a requirement for many positions to be bilingual. Industry-specific technology skills. Demonstrating your familiarity with industry standards. It's a really good thing. It shows that you know what you're talking about. And it tells the employers that, oh, we're going to take less time training you because you already know our software. And then industry-specific certifications. They're required for some positions. And also, again, when employers are looking at your resume and see that you already have it, they're thinking, oh, we don't have to pay for them to get this training anymore. Cool, they already have it. And we have an example of a skills and certification section here. You can see that this person is bilingual in Spanish, English, written and spoken, and that they have their CPR certification, and their CPR certification is hopefully still valid. We can also see that they have 4 years of experience with Lightspeed Retail and Order Hive inventory management systems. So if this person is going for a management role where they're responsible for inventory, their employers and the HR people can see, oh, hey, this person has 4 years of experience with these two systems. We use one of these systems. They'll be easy to bring on board. And of course, what every college student should have, proficient in Microsoft Office and Google Suites. Here at Fresno State, we use Google Suites for our email and everything like that. You should have that on there. Other examples we can give, if you are a computer science student, you want to list the programming languages you're fluent in. If you are a psychology student, any mental health trainings or assessment certifications you have. These are all things that should go under your skills, certifications, and abilities area in your resume. Lastly, we're going to talk about awards and honors. We want to make sure that you can list special recognitions that you've received, especially if they pertain to your career goals. Now, when you list them, you want to be able to make sure that you're able to talk about them if they're asked about in the interview. You should want to be able to talk about, what does this honor or award mean? How were you chosen? And what did you learn or take away from receiving this award? And you can see examples of these down here. So we've talked about the contact information, your experiences, your education, skills and abilities, honors and awards. We put it all together, and we have a nice, happy, finished resume.
Hey, Tyler, there's a question regarding especially the job experience section. The question is, for the job posting, what should we focus on? Primary responsibilities, abilities, or knowledge of, etc.?
Absolutely. Thank you, Elaine, for asking that question. David, if you wouldn't mind muting your mic just real quick while I answer. Sorry, I get feedback. So to answer your question, Elaine, you really do need to focus on all of it. The best recommendation to get started is to review the job posting and pull out specific phrases, the primary responsibilities, the abilities or knowledge of, the things that you know for certain you have, and start writing your resume from there. Very, very rarely will there be a candidate that matches all of their expectations. It's up to you to match as many as possible, and then from there, make yourself stand out. So definitely just pull from the entire job posting any of the skills or responsibilities, knowledge of whatever you have done, and build it from there. And it looks like I'm looking at the chat right now. We have another question of, how many years do we go back? And is there someone in the Career Development Center that can help you set up a LinkedIn? Yes. So I'm going to answer questions backwards. Yes, the career counselors can help you get started with LinkedIn just to kind of navigate it and what to expect and what to do there. Each major, depending on the college you are under, has a specific career counselor that is assigned to you. You can contact us here at the Career Development Center, or you can look on our website to find which career counselor is the one assigned to your college, and you can reach out to them to set up an appointment to start setting up your LinkedIn account. With regards to how far back you go, it really kind of depends, especially on how much relevant experience you have. So something that we're going to mention a little bit later is resumes should typically no longer be more than 2 pages for a resume. If you go into something more like a curriculum vitae, a CV, those are typically a little bit longer, so you have more opportunity to expand on your job history. We would typically say no more than 10 to 15 years max going back. But again, that depends on if you have 20 years of experience in a certain field and you are applying for an advanced position in that field, then by all means, try to fit in as much experience as you have as possible to show, yes, like I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm about. I can handle this position. And Angelina asks, I was wondering how to tailor a resume if there wasn't a job posting. Most jobs I have been introduced to have been told word of mouth or verbally. So in that case, it's really just going to be a matter of you listing the relevant skills. And again, that goes back to where we mentioned at the very beginning of starting to list out your resume, just doing the bubble mapping, doing the T-chart, whatever helps you organize your thoughts, and listing out what are the primary responsibilities for what you are, what you've done in the past. If you know what the job is that you are applying to, look online and see what people are saying are relevant skills and abilities to have in this position. It may not be specific to that job or industry that you're looking for, but say you heard that there was an opening for an office assistant in a doctor's office. Look up office assistants in doctors' offices online and see what skills people say that they need to be successful in those careers. And then you can start seeing how it fits in with your resume from there. Elaine asks, how do I feel about an objective? And additionally, should education come before experience? Great questions, Elaine. And those questions are actually things that will be answered in our next webinar in the series. That's going to be next week, next Wednesday, this exact same time. It's going to be in the Resume Beyond Basics section. This information is also available on the Career Development Center's Career Success Guide. Personally speaking, when it comes to an objective, it's not something that I include in my resumes. The only reason for that is because most of the jobs I personally have applied to require a cover letter. And most of the information that I would put in an objective goes in the cover letter. And when we think about resumes, like I said, we want to think 2 pages max, no more than that. It is all about real estate, how much space is available on that resume and how much I can fill it up and optimize it with my relevant experiences. This advice does not go for everyone. Like I said earlier, there is no one correct true resume above all the rest. And this is, again, something that we will be talking about next week in the Beyond Basics webinar. And then additionally, should education come before experience? So you can see here that the resume that I've created for Victor E, the organization is a little bit different than what we covered in the PowerPoint here. Again, that goes back to the concept of resume real estate, how to organize it. That is something that will be discussed next week. So please feel free to join us for that. But the main thing here that we can see is that this resume is legible. It's easy to read. The eyes just kind of flow through it, and where things are organized makes sense. I'm not reading about work experience in the education section. Everything is in its place. And then Mary also linked our LinkedIn information in the chat. And then we're going to move on here, and we are almost at the end, folks. So some final tips to consider. Your resume is the first piece of content employers see. Mentioned that in the beginning. This is the first example of the type of work that you can produce. You want to make sure that it looks neat with an easy to read, consistent font and layouts with no spelling errors. Your resume is your cheat sheet in the job interview. So a lot of people will recommend when you are actually in the interview to bring several copies of your own resume, some to hand out to the people who will be interviewing you, but at least one for yourself to use as a reference sheet whenever they ask you questions. You should be able to answer any question that's asked of you in the interview by looking at your resume. And as you can see, I've listed a hint here. Most of the questions asked during an interview will come from either the job posting, there's that pesky job posting again, or your resume. So having it there, we started this off by saying that it's a list of qualifications and experience. It very much is a cheat sheet for you to use whenever you're faced with questions in an interview setting. And then lastly, we have the information down here. You want to join us next week for Beyond Basics, where we cover professional summaries. So that's an example of an objective like we brought up in the questions earlier, relevant coursework and more. Again, next Wednesday, September 15th, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. via Zoom. We will be sending out the Zoom links for that right here pretty quickly. This PowerPoint is not planning on being emailed, but this webinar is currently being recorded. This webinar will be posted on our YouTube page, and I'm actually going to get to that in just a little bit. So you will have access to this webinar via YouTube. Additionally, if we are able to somehow make this resume available, or this presentation available, we will find a way to notify anyone who's interested about it. And if anyone does want it, you can feel free to go ahead and email me directly. I'm going to put my email in the chat. For anyone who is interested in this presentation. Alrighty, and so just lastly, contact us with any other questions. So please come and see us. We are still here in person. We're in the Thomas Building, room 103. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Our phone number is listed here along with our general email address. All of our social media is at Higher Fresno State. You can see we have Facebook, Twitter, Insta, Pinterest. But again, more relevant for this presentation, our YouTube page is also at Higher Fresno State. There are a lot of amazing, especially really informative pre-recorded webinars that we've done over the past year thanks to the pandemic. Most of our webinars have been online and they have been recorded full of just amazing information with regards to how to apply to federal jobs, how to find work in healthcare settings, anything that you can imagine. It's going to be on our YouTube page. Just look up YouTube at Higher Fresno State. And we still have plenty of time for questions if anyone else has anything that hasn't been answered yet. And thank you all.